Hey guys, it's Mitch. How's it going? So, why don't we take a look at a Chapel comic? That'd be a good idea, right? What are the odds a Chapel comic is bad? Probably kind of low. So we're going to take a look today at Chapel #1. So just before we get into it, if you feel like supporting the channel, check out the description of this video for links to my Patreon. All right, so I know I kind of started negative there. And I mean, I think when I ordered Chapel #1, my hopes were not exactly high. It's just, like, what are the odds I even talk about this comic? I have Berserkers #1. I have Troll #1. I haven't done videos on them yet because I opened the front cover and all the fucking life goes out of me. But yeah, no, I got this one too. And it's a little bit of a different story, I gotta say. Not the story itself. The story itself is garbage. Just like usual extreme macho quips on every page bullshit. What sets this apart, actually, is the art. Surprisingly, because most art at Extreme Studios is kind of trash. Some guys would do okay. Chap Yape did all right. Chris Sprouse was a later Extreme guy. I suppose they might have been Maximum. And there's the odd one or two guys that, are reasonably competent. Joe Bennett's another guy, reasonably competent in 1995, 96. And this one is by a guy I actually haven't heard of before. This is Calvin Irving. Never heard the name before this issue. And unfortunately, there's a reason for that. It looks like he did a few comics in the mid-90s, and then he just kind of disappeared. And it sounds like the reason was, unfortunately, that he passed away. And that kind of sucks because I gotta say, there's quite a bit of promise in this comic. A lot of it is wearing its influences on its sleeve. I assume this is a young guy at the time, and there are parts of what he's doing, like big parts of what he's doing, that are just him copying other artists. In this case particular, it's Jim Lee doing Deathblow #1, and it's early period Jay Lee, like somewhere between X Factor and Youngblood Strike File. But I've talked about Rob's attempt to do Jim Lee's Deathblow style before. I talked about that quite a bit. Why? Because Rob half-assed it, as he does most things. This is, this guy has some problems here and there, but he's going full on, and I can appreciate that. We can start with the cover here. You can see the Deathblow influence, just everywhere on this. Most notably, I'd say in the folds in the pants here, and what's going on with the boots, but you can see it in the fingers as well. Those are specifically Jim Lee, tube fingers. He really did a lot of that on the Deathblow. And there's problems with the foreshortening. The shadowing is a little bit messy here and there, but it's also very dynamic, and it's fun. There's some fun shit going on here. And I don't know what exactly is going on with this gun. I can kind of tell. It looks like an AK-47 that's had a bunch of pieces turned backwards or just kind of made to look like biotech or something like that. I'm not sure exactly where this guy is getting this from, because there's not a lot of people who are drawn like this at this time. This is not Dave Johnson. This is not Travis Charest. It doesn't look like manga to me. If anything, it looks a little bit just a little bit like Richard Bennett. But even then, I don't think not in 95. I don't know, he could be talking to Richard Bennett at this time. But or maybe they just got similar influences. I don't know. It's just kind of a mess of parts, but it does look kind of cool. And this guy has a bit of an affinity for drawing tech in this book. So let's open it up. Writer, Brian Whitten. Never heard of him. Probably for good reason. At least as far as this comic goes, the story's just not memorable in any kind of way. Artist, Calvin Irving. So not just penciler, also doing the inks. There's some pretty sloppy inks too. But there's some, it's interesting. We'll get into it. Colors, Byron Tallman. He's a guy I've seen from time to time with Extreme. Most notably, I'd say, on Bloodstrike during the Keith Giffen issues. I didn't like it at the time. Can't remember if there's anything good in this in terms of the color. I guess we'll see on the way. Kurt Hathaway, letterer, sure. It's always Kurt Hathaway. Editor, Eric Stevenson, sure. It's always Eric Stevenson. And the story so far, the Chapel story, because it's a long and involved lore. Kind of at this point. Like I said, this is August 1995. So, not only have we gotten through all of the Youngblood issues, 1 through 10, that's the entire run. He's had his little bit in Strike File. He did the bit in Spawn where, we found out, oh, he killed Spawn. That's kind of all the lore, really, and until you get to Extreme Sacrifice, which this is after. And of course, in that, the whole deal was he killed himself and then he turned into like Super Demon And he was gonna, I don't even remember what the deal was. I mean, I'm pretty sure he was gonna try and take over the world, and I don't know, turn it into a hellscape. And then all of the heroes of the Extreme Universe had to unite to stop him. And then they did that. And I made videos. And then I was sad because, man, I spent so much time making those videos. So let's get into this. This will be fun, I think. This is a mix of like shitty extreme writing with interesting art. I don't know if we've ever seen that before. All right, so we're going to start out in Chapel's therapy session. So apparently Chapel has been mandated therapy sessions because, he shot himself in the dome. We got the big double page spread with like all of his face pieces flying off. And I guess now he's got PTSD from that. I suppose you would. The deal basically is that after the events of Extreme Sacrifice, when Demon Chapel was defeated, normal Chapel kind of just reappeared and didn't have any memory of Extreme Sacrifice. Which, I don't blame him for. If I could erase my memory of Extreme Sacrifice, I'd do it too. Although then I'd miss out on a Plaid issue or two. I'd probably still choose to forget it. Anyway, the starting splash here, it's okay. There's some weird choices. I don't know what the hell is with the floating, not quite in, if it's in perspective, it's tilted towards us, aquarium. Again, I think this is a young guy, and he doesn't 100% understand fundamentals. It's 1995, and he's drawing at Extreme Studios. Obviously, his focus is going to be style. So I guess we can mostly judge him on that. But, figure, it's not a bad basic shape. This does look a little bit Jay Lee, but we'll see more of it as we go. So he, gives you, a bare bones account of, everything that's ever happened to Chapel, essentially. You don't kill your best friend, get HIV, and blow your brains out without developing some kind of feelings on the matter. And she's just like, what? You killed your best friend? So, yeah, no, but he's okay now. He's a hellspawn. And he doesn't even answer that because his watch beeps, which means it's time to go get lunch, I guess. Oh, no, wait, he's got a voice message. And Chapel's going to get a call from an old friend or an old colleague, teammate, that kind of thing, that his daughter's disappeared and he needs Chapel's help to go and retrieve her. And so he takes off and, that's about it. We're just going to get a big splash here with a little bit of kind of introspective interior monologue from Chapel. Just thinking about this Jeff guy, I think. He says Jackson here. Maybe Jackson's his last name. There's so many guys in Image whose first name is Jackson that I just assume at this point that's his first name. Okay, so it's Jeff Jackson, and we find out that, they were teammates in Nicaragua. So probably doing mercenary work at that time. So that's it for the story here. The panels are doing some interesting stuff. Like the shadow that he's going for here, it's, there's a pretty basic shadow in there, but he's doing all sorts of neat stuff with, I guess, the rendering here, and filling the bottom of the panel with a lot of black. They're going for deep shadows and stuff. It's kind of great. And then the splash here, he goes for a bit of a montage with a big cool shot of Chapel on his bike. Again, like I said, this Calvin guy seems to have a bit of a handle on drawing tech. This looks pretty goddamn good. You can see a basic bike shape in there, and he's just kind of added all sorts of stuff on there, but the stuff all looks like it should work, theoretically. Managed to make it look like he's actually sitting on the bike, so he's one up on Rob there. And we get, the big shot of the Jim Lee eyes. These are pretty much Jim Lee eyes here. Overseeing the whole thing. A lot more crags in there, but then Jim Lee was doing that kind of thing on Deathblow. Tiny nose. This seems to be the main difference between Calvin Irving and Jim Lee's Deathblow style, is that he shortens up the nose. And then Chapel zooms off in a nice little transition panel here that, it's kind of imaginative. I don't think I would have thought of that. And I like it. Not really a whole lot here. This is a lot of filibustering, trying to fill up space. We do find out that this new motorcycle was tricked out by Sentinel with a radar jammer. So when he goes past the traffic cop here at 200 miles an hour, the speed gun here tracks it as 55. Which, the cop doesn't believe, but then he doesn't have any kind of case to back him up. If he decides to chase Chapel down, which, even if he tried, he probably couldn't, right? Not at 200 miles an hour. But, small shot of the bike here, but again, everything stays in interesting proportion. There's a bit of cartooniness going on with this bike, but I still like it quite a bit. And some very thick inking. when he decides to go for it. Like, he's doing the Jim Lee no holding lines thing here and there. But yeah, when he does go for the ink, it looks like maybe a brush, and he's being a little haphazard about it. Which, it's not necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing thing, but I don't really mind it that much just because it doesn't have that, it doesn't look like Danny Meeke, it doesn't look like Jonathan Sabal, and those are usually your options. All right, so then we're going to cut to New Orleans, where there's some kind of car wreck here. Girl here says somebody's coming, they're all arguing in the background. Girl flags down Chapel as he pulls up. Again, these two arguing back and forth. She asks just for a ride back to a gas station. And Chapel says, I just came, there's no gas station for miles. So we have a mystery. Again, some interesting stuff going on. We're starting to see a little bit of that Jay Lee influence, particularly with a reliance on silhouettes. And doing some white media flicking here with toothbrush flicking at the bottom. Isn't necessarily a reason down here, although I don't have an argument against it. Here I kind of like it because he's melting into this big cloud thing as he screeches on the brakes. So once he starts to poke holes in her story, she pulls a gun on him, points it right in his face. This is his face, by the way. Again, going heavy duty on the blacks. And again, we're starting to get a little bit of that Jay Lee influence with what I think this is supposed to be the tail end of the do-rag, because it was looking pretty ragged at the bottom of the previous page here. So yeah, I think that's the idea. Going for some splattery kind of panel borders. And naturally, Chapel isn't particularly put out by having a gun pointed in his face, because he's the biggest badass in the extreme universe, right? And all of her buddies have guns too. Looks like there's more buddies off in the distance. That's kind of a creepy looking shot, actually. It's kind of zombie looking. And they all kind of swarm in. So he boots her in the face. Because naturally, pretty good extension on that kick. And then all of her friends start leaping in and shooting. This panel's kind of awesome. There is some definite Jim Lee in this figure here. Nah, not so much some of these guys. Looks pretty solid though. And this pose here is fun. Actually, this looks a bit like Frank Miller, which would be, of course, the source of the Jim Lee Deathblow style. So once all her buddies start shooting, Chapel grabs her, uses her as a human shield. That does seem like the Chapel way. All sorts of splatter all over the place. That's pretty good stuff. I mean, not maybe the best message to send to 13-year-olds and shit, but whatever. Liefeld has never made morals any kind of priority in the Extreme universe. And then Chapel's just going to start shooting, and he's going to start winning, because that's what happens. Says, all right, boys, get ready to party. And yeah, we can begin the macho quips in earnest. So, a bunch of guys get shot, and he goes, touchdown, 2-point conversion, here I come. Then he gets some rig set. I'm not sure when he gets the time for this, but apparently Sentinel set him up with another rig, which he sets for maximum rock and roll. And then he gets back into his football analogy, ending with hike. But, all this stuff is super fun. A whole lot of energy going on. And yeah, it keeps up with the football shit. But, this shot here is kind of great. Still going for, you're still putting in that white media toothbrush stuff. The spatter all over the place. But, super solid, really, and just kind of an awesome shot. And the criminals here have all decided that they're going to die now, so they decide they might as well go down fighting. It's all right, and super Jim Lee Deathblow stuff. But, again, it's well executed. Like I said, there's the odd problem here and there with stuff like perspective, with stuff like where the shadows are coming from, but that's never really been stuff you've been too worried about with Image anyway. It's really, can it look cool? And I mean, both of these pages look pretty goddamn cool. This is wild. So this is Chapel shooting, and I guess all the bullets zooming in on his ambushers. Very interesting choice. And yeah, all the ambushers getting blown away. And again, the spread is friggin' wild. Another cool close-up shot as Chapel celebrates. I'm not sure exactly what the state of Chapel is here, whether he's still supposed to have the bone skull face. I don't think so. But I also don't know when that would have been resolved. The only thing I can think of is maybe somewhere in Youngblood Strike File or Bloodstrike, because he was in Bloodstrike for a while. But yeah, super cool close-up. One of the guys is going, good Lord, please help me. And Chapel goes, I am your Lord. And shoots him in the head one last time. And then the overdub is like, and Lord Chapel has spoken. It's like, oh, wait a minute, Lord Chapel, that sounds familiar. We get the little demon version of Chapel here, which is just kind of a little bit sort of remembering. But like, that's a pretty good spread, right? Like there's parts of this that are kind of matching the challenge of someone like Platt. Because like, Prophet was like a gauntlet thrown down, right? To all of Extreme Studios. Like, this is the bar now. You got to step your game up. And at least this guy's trying. Not too much going on here. Just, he's a little weirded out by the association he made with Lord Chapel. And then he just thinks, I'm a badass thoughts for the rest of the splash here. Splash is okay. I mean, it's not a patch on what we got a couple of pages ago. But, he doesn't have anything left to shoot, right? And then he kind of remembers, oh, yeah, I was going somewhere. I was going to go see my buddy Jeff and help him out with whatever's going on with his daughter. So gets back on his pretty cool-looking bike and takes off and gets there. He's at a cathedral somewhere, and it's a pretty good-looking cathedral. I don't know if this is Lightbox. I would guess probably so, but interesting-looking inks. Like, with how thick it is and how much it's relying on the heavy-duty blacks, there's parts of this that remind me a little bit of, like, Jean-Paul Léon when he was doing Earth X. I didn't read a ton of that, but I thought it was an interesting style, at least. All right, so Chapel goes into the chapel, and, he's on high alert, and naturally he's going to get a freeze out from the shadows. And there's a little bit of mistaken identity where they both think they're being ambushed. It's like, oh, wait, no, this is the guy I came to meet. So they do a Predator, and then Jeff's going to fill him in on what the deal is. So he says he thinks his daughter stumbled onto something big. She went on a date a week ago and hasn't come back. No one knows the guy she went with. And then after I called you, these freaking men armed to fight a small war showed up at my place. So it sounds like, it was kind of almost going somewhere. And then it's like, well, not really. This guy's daughter disappeared and then people showed up to shoot him. So it feels a little bit commando-y there. All right. And yeah, they get a quick moment together, but then people pull up outside of the chapel and they take that to mean that was the guys that ambushed Chapel. So yeah, we're not sure who exactly Jeff is in opposition with here. So I guess the more immediate threat is whoever tried to stop Chapel on the side of the road. It didn't seem like it was meant to be a mugging exactly, or a kidnapping or anything like that. They just kind of decided they were going to shoot him. So maybe, it was just a straight up ambush. And yeah, so that's the only real tangible threat we've gotten in this comic so far. So I guess that does have to be the guys pulling up outside. They go inside, they don't see them anywhere. Except it turns out that Chapel and Jeff are hiding on the cross, which is weird. But we do get a vertical double page splash, which, hey, that's not too bad, really. I'm not a fan of vertical double page splashes at all in any kind of comic. But it's right in the middle of the book. We get a gigantic shot of Chapel leaping down in a pretty cool pose. And he went nuts with all of it's like a combo of Jim Lee Deathblow and Stephen Platt Veins and double lighting. And went extra hard on like the skull motif on Chapel's face. Like I can't argue against any of this. This kind of turned out awesome. Jeff up here is a bit of an afterthought. But, of course he is, right? This isn't Jeff number one. This is Chapel number one. And then we're going to get like a really imaginative spread. Again, this is like borderline Platt stuff. Where we got the central image of Jeff and Chapel just shooting everything in the room. Looks pretty great, pretty decent. So I think kind of solid shadowing. Get the shell casings flying all over. There's a Platt influence. And then, these like shattered glass kind of panels all around. They don't need to be in any kind of order because, of course, they don't. This is just carnage happening all around them. The shots themselves, not particularly impressive, but, they're not even designed to be. And the colorist is kind of reflecting that, I think, by just having them all be this uniform kind of bluish gray. These are just ciphers, in the immortal words of Barry Windsor Smith. They're just there to get shot. So we just need to show, a body with bullet holes in it. And, the focus is these two going nuts, and it all works kind of great. So that's kind of all Calvin Irving's got for a minute. I think he's got to recharge for a couple of pages. So Chapel and Jeff take some cover behind the altar here while they reload. And the leader of the mercenary, well, whoever's chasing them down, we don't even really know, decides to break out a rocket launcher. Knows in advance that he'll probably take out some of his own men. Doesn't really mind. Yeah, shoots right at the altar here. Get some little Jay Lee silhouettes running away. That's good stuff. And as the explosion hits, I mean, at least we got an explosion. Like, I've seen it before where, like, theoretically, an explosion goes off, but you're kind of just guessing if that's what that was. No, that's an explosion. And Chapel, I guess, flips away like you would, right? If you're getting propelled, you got to try that flip. Jeff got pinned by debris, I suppose, so it's up to Chapel now to take everybody else out, naturally. Pretty cool shot here, a close-up on Jeff. That looks fairly Jim Lee, and he's got some nice streaks over it that kind of looks like it. I think that's meant to be debris. Could be shadow. Whatever it is, it's just a brushstroke going straight across here. It looks almost like it's carried over. I don't think it quite is. Yeah, this stuff is done pretty fast, and like I said, pretty sloppy. In some parts, like the face itself, some nice thin line stuff. But yeah, I do not mind where it's going. Chapel's still just running around shooting everything. Doesn't matter. As long as we get this cool shot of Chapel doing some John Woo diving off to the side while he shoots. Heavy death blow vibes. Looks great. Foreshortening's a bit mushy, but again, I don't care because this looks kind of awesome. And he's just like flipping through the crowd of whoever they're shooting at and yelling, shit like lights, camera, action. Because he's got a new metaphor that he's working with. Football got boring. Now he's a movie star. And that seems to be about it. Well, there's an explosion again. I'm not sure even why. I guess it doesn't matter. Just explosions are happening. And picks off the last few, like snipes them. And that seems to be it. Then he helps Jeff up out of the debris. Thinks he hears a noise off in the distance and he's going to go check it out. While he does, Jeff, raises a gun. And he's like, sorry, bud. Bruce takes a second to turn around because he's not expecting anything from this avenue. And, okay, now we've got some unclear shit because it looks as though, I think he was going to shoot Chapel. I think there was a moment when I first read this one, I thought he did shoot Chapel. But no, it looks like he was about to and drops the gun and then goes, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. It's like, you didn't even shoot me. What are you talking about? And from somewhere in the shadows, Jeff gets sniped. Pretty good looking gun here. And then they start shooting at Chapel. Chapel, I don't know. He does something here. I think he throws a knife or two or three. I don't know. Probably gets the guy, but it's hard to tell. This is a bit of a mess. This is a 16-panel grid where some of the panels are a little bit clear what's going on and some of them really aren't. That's okay. And Jeff says it wasn't supposed to be me. So I guess he had some arrangement going on with these people who jumped them, where he'd get Chapel there, they'd kill Chapel, and then he'd get his daughter back. That's the implication I'm getting. And they were also the guys who stopped Chapel at the side of the road. Again, this is all just a little bit assumed because I don't think too much of it got touched on in whatever passed for a script on this. Again, it doesn't really matter. The sequence of events is not important. Did we get cool looking pages? We kind of did. And then Chapel walks out of the church carrying Jeff. We can't see him carrying the body here, which seems like an oversight. He should be like silhouetted against the church, which appears to be burning. Might be burning. Yeah, there's fire and stuff. Yeah. And then he's getting more memory flashbacks of himself as, giant demon Lord Chapel. And then we get the impression that this is going to keep coming back, where he starts to get more and more of his memory back and maybe works towards becoming that again. I'm not for sure. I do like the way they did it here, where the fire from the church here kind of transitions into, hellfire. And we get this figure, this black figure kind of coming out of it with his back to us at first. And then all we see is him turning to us. And it's mostly in shadow, but we still know what it is, naturally. And it's nicely executed. And then it's a little bit spoiled here because we see it more clearly. I would have liked to have had that be the ending for that particular sequence. But yeah, this seems to be whatever the mission is. God will not help you, my son. You are already tainted. It's in your blood. You must open more doors. So whatever that means, that might be the focus. And that's, that we're going to use that to theoretically transition into the next issue. There's not much there. It's okay because we get this pretty cool shot of Chapel here to end on. Again, very Jim Lee influenced, but with, some of the intensity dialed up there. So yeah, that's kind of it for chapel number 1. I dug that quite a bit. I was not expecting this to be, any kind of good whatsoever. But, it really turned out to be pretty damn good. And it's a shame that we didn't get more out of Calvin Irving. I would have liked to have known the name going into this. It feels like there's a temptation to compare him to like Nick Manabat, like both guys who could obviously draw and unfortunately passed away very young. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, Nick Manabat was fully formed when we first saw him on Cybernary. This guy wasn't quite there yet. I would have really liked to see, though, where he was like 3 years after this, and we just didn't get it. And that really is a shame. This feels like Moon Knight Platt, where it's a mess, but like it's a really interesting mess, and you can see that there's a lot of potential for growth. So yeah, I'll probably do it for this one. I don't have any other issues from this particular chapel series. I could always probably get another couple if you guys want to see them. I do have another chapel number 1, because this is volume 2 number 1, of course. So I could hit volume 1 number 1, which doesn't look as good, but also looks very weird. So it might be worth it. So we'll see if we decide to do that. But for this one anyway, that's going to do it. Thanks very much for watching, guys. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notification so you know when the next one's coming out. You can go over and subscribe to my Patreon, and you can get early access to everything I do, from the Blood Force stuff to the YouTube videos, as well as the odd Patreon exclusive bit. You can also follow me on Instagram, DM me there for commissions. Commissions are open. And you can join the Blood Force Discord server if you want. Yeah, I know that wasn't done with robotic efficiency. So if that put you off, I apologize. I'm kind of trying to humanize myself a little bit here. It might not work. Well, we'll see. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks again for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.